Greetings from my home to yours. It's Monday. 1 week ago, George Floyd was brutally murdered here in our community by the police. And in this past week, we have held so much as a community, so much in our hearts. As we've witnessed the violence, as we've heard the helicopters overhead, as we've tried to find ways to show up in support and compassion and love where we are most needed, as we've sat in despair and asked ourselves, will things ever change? How come this has happened again? What must we learn and unlearn, and what must we do differently? My Universalist faith teaches me there is room for that whole range of experience at the table of our faith. That the pain and the despair and the questions and the anger have place side by side with the love and the hope and the compassion and the affirmation of the beauty of our humanity. 1 week ago today, George Floyd was murdered. 99 years ago today, Tulsa, Oklahoma, was the site of the largest act of racial violence in American history, as white mobs attacked a thriving Black business district that was known as the Black Wall Street of the United States. That massacre has sat silent in our history until only recently. It is only now, close to 100 years after it happened, that the state of Oklahoma has made the commitment to include it in its curriculum, in its teachings, to tell the story so that it will not remain silent, but that will be a piece of the understanding of the depth of racism in our nation's history and of our need to address that history and create meaningful change. 12 weeks ago, in my very first message at the beginning of this time of being at home, I talked about the chalice and ways to create a chalice that we might kindle in our homes together to remind us of the foundations of our faith and the ways in which our faith can teach us and challenge us and sustain us in this time. In this past week, amid all the range of emotions and experiences, I returned to that question. What is my faith teaching me in this moment? What can I tell my children, my teenagers, as they come of age and graduate high school in this moment? And I turned back to James Luther Adams, the Unitarian theologian who experienced the Second World War and who sought to articulate a liberal religious theology that could speak to tragedy, speak to evil, and still provide a liberal religious path towards hope and justice. James Luther Adams wrote a number of wonderful books and resources, but one of the things that I return to again and again are what he called his 5 smooth stones of liberal religion. I keep these stones in a bag and pull them out from time to time when I need to revisit them. And I have given similar bags of stones as gifts to coming of age students, to mentees in ministry, to students at the theological school. And I wanted to share them with you today because this time of struggle, this time of pain and hope will continue. And our faith is a piece of the foundation that will help us not only to get through it, but will help us to hopefully finally create something new. The first smooth stone that James Luther Adams taught is the stone of learning, the affirmation that revelation is not sealed. There are always new insights, new experiences that we can incorporate into our learning. And there are also sometimes things that we need to unlearn and discard. Growing a soul is a journey, and the stone of learning reminds us that we are always learners in faith and learners in life, and that is a piece of the role not just for ourselves, but of our community. The second stone is the stone of mutuality, the affirmation that all of our relationships must be based on mutual freedom and that there can never be coercion or an imbalance of power in them. The stone of mutuality reminds us that we can only be free when everyone is free, and that mutual freedom is the foundation for true relationship. The third stone is the stone of justice. And James Luther Adams reminded us with this stone that any religion worth its salt has a prophetic dimension, calls us into a larger justice beyond ourselves, beyond our own world, into the wider world. And that prophetic nature is a piece of religion and a piece of what we need to live out our own sense of moral responsibility to our time and our world. The fourth follows after the stone of justice, and it is the stone of action and agency. It is not just enough to be able to see the need for justice, but we must find ways, large and small, to try to make justice real and make love real in our daily lives. With the stone of action, he reminds us of our human agency and the fact that goodness doesn't just happen. People help to make goodness happen. And the last and fifth stone is perhaps the stone that has seemed most elusive in this past week. It is the stone of hope. It is the stone by which James Luther Adams reminded us that the resources are available in the holy, in the humanity, in the web of creation of which we are a part, that the resources are available for meaningful change if we will engage them and take them up and try to bring them to bear in our lives. The stone of hope is this hope that we will make a difference and that living lives of meaning and change and justice and mutuality and learning are what our faith calls us to do each and every day. So I hope that these 5 stones can help to be a source of foundation for you in this time of struggle, in this time of compassion, in this time of solidarity, and yes, in this time of hope. We are together in this journey, my friends, as a community of faith, and may we help bear witness to that faith in how we address and speak and respond to this moment. Sending love and hope out to each of you. Blessed be.